Talent. This is part of the joy that is filling in for a big-time show like Allman in the Morning. Senator Talent, thank you so much for coming on today. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too, Stacey, and what a great segue.
Hey, you know what? I've been working on that all morning. So I can't stand what I just heard. And to put it in perspective, obviously you know this, but for the listeners, Alan Dershowitz is a Democrat, and he is leveling some very heavy criticism at Barack Obama for this action that it's clearly from the Obama administration. There's no bones about that. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, the number of Democratic senators have condemned this resolution. Then we get, and I wrote in this column, I said, one fervently hopes this is the last exercise of Obama's peculiar genius for Mideastern affairs. And then Kerry gives this speech in which he says Israel can't be both a Jewish state and a democracy, when it is, of course, right now, both a Jewish state and a democracy. And I just don't, it's, you know, in dealing with this administration, it's like it's in the realm of the psychological, because they cannot recognize reality, and everything that you just played, all the criticisms are correct, and people who doubt it just judge by results. Look all through the region, and America has forfeited its interests and the cause of peace. A lot of people say Obama's neglected the Middle East. I wish he had neglected the Middle East, because we would be better off than we are now if he had never said or done anything with regard to it. So Trump's got a big hole to dig himself out of, or I guess he would call it a big swamp he's got to drain, but he's taking the right steps.
You know, I want to quote you in your piece. You have a fantastic article on National Review right now, Mr. Obama's Middle Eastern Legacy. And this is what you said. Libya is in chaos. ISIS has a foothold there. Iran has advanced their nuclear program. They've benefited enormously from sanctions relief. They're indulging their appetite for terrorism and aggression from Lebanon to Yemen. Syria is a killing field. Jordan is endangered. Iraq is fighting a civil war against an enemy whose tactics are barbarian, even by Middle Eastern standards. I mean, you go on, but your assessment is chilling of the result of this limp-wristed, pansy-fied, that's what I call it, foreign policy it's a red pen, a phone, and a bowing and scraping.
Yeah, well, he's tough with our friends, like the Israelis. Madeleine Albright said, I think it was 3 years ago, she said, frankly, the world's a mess. And it is a mess. A lot of it is because the president at bottom does not understand that the international order, which he wants so much, is underpinned by American leadership and American power. He thinks we're the problem, and he entered office thinking that. He still does. And then here, I mean, they've not only made Israel equivalent to their adversaries, but they've elevated their adversaries above them with this resolution, because they condemn Israel. They do not condemn the excesses by the Palestinian leadership. So, I mean, the only thing we can say is he's going to be gone in 3 weeks. We have to hope that this is viewed as a parenthesis. And, Donald Trump's got a lot ahead of him because of what Obama's done. And the sheer, the English language, rich as it is, does not afford enough words to describe the stupidity and fecklessness of this administration, particularly with regard to the Middle East, but not just there.
I just keep using the word enraging because it makes me so upset to hear. I mean, this is Hanukkah, this is Christmas. It's the end of the Obama administration, and this empowers. So a lot of people hear BDS movement and they're not sure what it is. Obviously, tip of the spear folks understand what it is, but most Americans are not running around researching BDS movement or Palestinian rights or even really paying attention to what's going on in the Middle East, other than if we have terror here or if there's discussions about the Syrians and some of the refugee action. And so when I heard that, obviously he's got this UN Security Council resolution, it goes through, we abstain, which means it's a tacit support. And then we have people saying, well, now the BDS movement is going to be empowered. And BDS is boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And it's a movement working to end international support for Israel's oppression of Palestinians and pressure Israel to comply with international law. I'm on their website, bdsmovement.net. It's nothing but propaganda and crap. And these people will now be empowered for the next 3 or 4 weeks and probably into the Trump administration, unless he can do something definitive to reverse this movement. Is there anything he can do, Senator Talley?
Yeah, this goes, well, there's a lot he can do. And I think one of the reasons he's talking about, for example, moving the embassy, is because he now knows that the United States has to do some high visibility things to show its support for Israeli security in order to convince the world that Obama's policy is over. In other words, that's the step that I'm sure the president-elect is considering options about in order to say, okay, how can we send a very clear signal that the policy has changed 180 degrees, and he's going to look at a lot of things, and there's a lot of reasonable options that he can take in order to do that, and he's already doing it with his tweets, and so it makes a lot of sense. Like I said in the article, that the two groups of people who oppose this, which is I think everybody views reality, are the one hand people who do think Israel has a moral, or the Jews have a moral claim on a state because of the persecution they suffered, and specifically the Holocaust, and because they are a democracy. And then another group that's you would call a realist in this, a Kissinger-esque, that says, okay, we're not going to make a judgment as between the two sides, but we want the dispute resolved peaceably. It's in the interest of the United States for it to be resolved through negotiations. And in order to get there, we have to support Israel's right to exist, because they're not going to negotiate with people who are trying to destroy them, and we'll use the negotiations as a stalking horse in order to accomplish that. Those are both reasonable positions, okay? And both those groups have opposed what's happening because they realize this is just going to lead to conflict and war, and which it has done. So, I don't know. I think when he said Israel can't be Jewish and a democracy, what he meant is they're not a democracy because they elect people I don't like. Okay, that's not the definition of democracy.
Well, it's anti-Semitic to say they can't be Jewish. I mean, I'm not the first person to toss around terms like anti-Semitic or racist or things like that, but to me, it smacks of anti-Semitism to say that they can't practice their religion and still have a functioning democracy. I mean,
the same people, of course, will defend, which we wrote, the Iraqi and Afghanistan constitutions, which specifically provide that they are Islamic states. I mean, it's just a galloping double standard that's being applied against Israel. And the other thing to notice here is that if you're a rational Israeli voter or a rational Israeli leader, the risks that you're going to be prepared to take in order to achieve peace are inversely related to the support you have internationally, and particularly from the United States. In other words, if you feel the United States really does have your back, you're going to go a little bit further in being willing to agree to something that may be a little risky in terms of your ability to defend yourself, because you think your allies are covering you.
We're up against the hard break at the bottom of the hour, but I'm going to tweet out your article. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. So much knowledge and expertise, and we greatly need you at this point in our history to keep things real and honest. So thank you, Senator Talley.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.